I'm endlessly fascinated and curious about the world around us, about business, about politics, about the arts, about culture, developments, social issues, and the people. Most importantly, about the people that are shaping our future. Every night, I get the opportunity to have conversations, to dive into conversations with thought leaders, with change makers, entrepreneurs, politicians, and everyday heroes who unpack the ideas and stories that I think matter to all of us. What's the future of our economy? What's the future of our country? How do we build stronger communities? What can we learn from music, theater, sports, politics, the arts? How does policy shape our real lives? What does leadership look like, real leadership in today's environment? If it's interesting and relevant and topical and we're talking about it, you'll hear about it here at 6 o'clock on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I want to have real conversations, in-depth conversations. These are ideas we're sharing. This is the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Thanks for joining me. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I've got Tabitha Rose with us tonight. She is the founder, publisher, community builder of an organization called Life to Paper Publishing, which is really trying to help people write their stories. Sounds fascinating. Tabitha, we've had the chance of talking when you were just starting out numerous years ago. Tell us what you're all about and where you've come today.
Yeah, thank you. It's so nice to be here. I think my conversation with you years ago, I will never forget because I think it was the first time that I really came out honestly with my own story. And as somebody who helps people, tell their brave, honest stories, it was actually difficult for me, but I found it easy with you. And I always look back on that fondly. So thank you.
Well, thank you, because I thought it was, an interesting story, and a fascinating business model that you've got. So tell us about the business model, please.
Yeah. So Life to Paper Publishing, we are a small press, and we specialize in stories, nonfiction stories around overcoming difficult things. Our books are found in the bookstore in Indigo. You'll see like the mental health, addiction, recovery, trauma, grief, personal development. That's where you'll find our books. They're intended. We tell our stories to help the next person going through something difficult, to show them hope.
And Tuesday, and I think this is a start of a series of events you're having that are going to showcase some of your authors. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about the event?
Correct.
and who the authors are and what they've written about?
Yeah. So this book, where our events are centered around, is called When We Forgive. And it was authors in our community, some already with books out in the world, that said they wanted to do something to give back. They know we have a nonprofit arm, and that nonprofit arm goes into mental health, addiction treatment centers, and brings life to paper workshops for therapeutic purposes. So they said, what can we do? So we started to talk, and through our conversations, this theme emerged of forgiveness. So that was it. We decided we were going to tell stories on finding forgiveness when it felt incredibly hard or impossible even. So we ended up corralling 15 voices, 15 stories that touch on like needing to forgive somebody else, wanting to be forgiven ourselves for harms we've caused, or self-forgiveness. So that's how the book kind of came to be. And now we've been, going around and hosting discussions around forgiveness, sharing our stories. And it's been really lovely. People have been opened up and shared their own. And in the context too of many of our stories touch on, when addiction hits home, for us or for a parent, for example, and harm is caused, and needing to find forgiveness. My story talks about my father's addiction ultimately affecting me, and then me falling into addiction myself. And, being told in recovery, making amends and forgiving is what you need to do to be well. Like, frankly, what you need to do to stay alive and stay sober. So I took that very seriously. And forgiveness with my father came through understanding, through a conversation that led me to see we'd experienced the same things, and I wanted to tell the story because I could remember a moment, and I could explore and write about that moment when I felt forgiveness happen. Um, and the realization in writing it for me was realizing forgiveness is more of a spectrum than it is a you have it or you don't.
What do you mean a
Um,
spectrum?
eh, I mean, I used to, like many things, used to judge myself and judge forgiveness as though it should look like us, my father and I running off into the sunset in this happy, joyous relationship. And it's not quite like that, but I've forgiven and it's given me freedom and I'm as free as I need to be. Um, and I think like forgiveness can happen on a spectrum too. It can happen over time. It's not always you have it or you don't. It can, and I think for us it has happened over time and it will continue to happen. Sometimes it's that way too when um, you never receive an apology, right? But you still need to forgive to free yourself, to be well, and to have peace yourself. So I want peace today. Life and active addiction was insane, and now I do whatever I can to keep that peace and grow that peace, and that's one of those things. So I think with us, the forgiveness will continue to happen over time. And for now, what I've experienced is given me is, the freedom I need for right now.
Did you blame him for your addiction? Was his addiction the cause of your addiction?
I don't see it that way, but I think one of the reasons I stayed unwell and was because I had so much shame that it happened to me. Because I remember as a child, like knowing about his struggles and saying to myself, like, I will never be that. That will never be me. And so when it happened, I thought, I kept it a secret as best I could for as long as I could, trying to figure it out, trying to, hoping and willing for it not to be true. And I got worse that way. And so I think it was a lot of shame. I resented him for this. Now it's
Shame,
me.
sorry, shame that he was addicted, or that you became addicted?
Shame that I became addicted.
Wait, because you thought you were better than that, or
I thought I could will, it differently. Like my will would be strong enough to make sure that that would never happen to me. And that's why I think I felt so much shame around it. I said as a kid, like I had these big dreams and, my mother instilled the fatal flaw of confidence in me. I guess I can do anything, I can be anyone, but that I'll never be. And then here I was, uh, you know, in an active addiction and just finding it so bizarre and sad and tragic that I'd fallen into it too. And I also judged myself thinking like, my addiction is different from other people's. I think that I didn't think look like others, and it was weird, and that therefore like I didn't really fit in maybe recovery programs or rooms or treatment programs. Like mine was different. And that kept me.
Well, sorry, explain. What were you addicted to? Why was your addiction different than others?
Felt it was different. My they called drug of choice was alcohol and cocaine. And when I started to use, I had lost complete control over how much or for how long I used. So once I started, and it wasn't daily, but once I started, it would go on for days. And it started to steamroll over my life. I mean, jobs I had before I, started Life to Paper, jobs I had I couldn't keep, commitments I had I couldn't keep. I became the no-show. And my father was the no-show in my life. My father was the one like, oh, we had plans and, cliche, typical child waiting on the front steps, and he never came. And so I became that.
And yet you
Because
had
once
seen him and seen how addiction had negatively impacted him and yourself, but you still did it. You still fell into it.
I still fell into it, and I tried so hard not to. I tried with all my will and my might, but and that's what I found so shameful, I think. And that's what kept me, yeah, the secret of it too. Trying to deal with it myself, not being able to ask for help. I didn't think, that would expose me, and therefore people would know. But thankfully, I came out of that. I think it had to get bad. It had to get to a point where I couldn't keep it a secret anymore, and people who loved me around me started to see. Don't think they understood quite what it was at first, but it just needed to be said, and I needed to go somewhere to get well.
How did you,
And
like some people say they got to go to rock bottom, that they got to hit something, hit the wall. Like what happened to you that you were able to get out of it and go somewhere to deal with it?
I think what happened, it was a 7 day, let's call it binge. And this time it happened, with my family around in the family home there where I was visiting. And like other times, I couldn't control it. Once I started, I couldn't stop. So they started to witness what that looked like for me. And my sister intervened. I woke up after this 7 day binge, and she was on the end of my bed, and she was on the phone. And the first words I kind of heard her speak into the phone as I woke up was like, my sister, she's an addict. And I think her saying that out loud, I mean, first kind of broke my heart, but there was a freedom I started to feel, because there it was, right? It was said. And she was making plans for me to go and get help, to go somewhere where I could, find treatment and a program. And she took me, and I'm so grateful she did. She did the right thing. It was a hard thing, I think, but it was the right thing. It was also on, it was like you're going here and you don't have a choice, because you can't stay here anymore. Like it's either you go here, you go to a detox center, or you figure out where you're going to go. And I didn't think I had many other options at that point.
But you were an adult at the time, so you had the right to say no. You had to sign something, I presume, to go into that center.
Yeah, I was so beaten down that day. Like I was, we say, sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that was me. I did not have the strength, like that willpower to say, oh, I'll do it, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and just give me a few days. I'll go to one of those meetings I've been to before, and I'll figure it out. I didn't have that in me. Like I was really physically, mentally, spiritually just done, depleted. I didn't have the strength to like argue. It was like, okay. And I woke up the next day. I spent the night there and woke up, and I just felt ready. Like there was a knowing inside of me that this was it. And I was ready and willing to do whatever was suggested of me, to stay sober, to get well. So there were, people there who wanted to help me. I actually felt very grateful once that I woke up there that next day. I thought, like, there's a roof over my head. There's, food on my plate, and there's people around me that want to help me. Like, this is amazing. I think when you think so little of yourself by that point, you don't feel deserving of anything. And I felt like incredibly lucky, that I had this, support around me.
What a story! Thank you. Thank you again for sharing it. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in 2 minutes with Tabitha Rose of Life to Paper Publishing, about forgiveness, about her books, her business model, and some events that she's having. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. My guest tonight is Tabitha Rose of Life to Paper Publishing. She's just shared with us a very, you've been incredibly vulnerable and open. Thank you for that. It's been quite the story that you've just told us. Let me ask, though, you're writing a book about forgiveness. Did you have to ask for forgiveness from people? Or
Very
did you
much
just
so.
have to forgive your father, or both?
Oh, very much so. I mean, in the program of recovery, I'm a member of a fellowship, and it was suggested to me that I make a fearless personal moral inventory, and that meant going through and looking at those areas of my life, like people, places, things that I held resentments to, because I drank and used at some of those resentments, at the, poor me, this happened, this person did this, or these circumstances I've been faced with. And I was able to, through making that inventory, have a perspective shift. And that was that, what am I responsible for? What harm have I caused in the context of these relationships? And how to start taking responsibility for that harm. Whether it's emotionally I've caused harm, financially, and how to go about making those amends. And some of those amends are to people who've caused harm to me as well. But I was told to focus on my side of the street. I was focused to clean house and trust God, trust in a power greater than yourself. So I did that, and in many cases, I was making amends to people that some others might say, well, they owe you an amends or more of an amends. That I was told I can't think about that, like that I have to set aside, and I've got to focus on the amends I need to make so that, I can walk around the world and, look people in the eye and have like a true inner strength that comes from knowing I've taken responsibility and really have a good sense of who I am and my behaviors and the things that I want to change. Because once you put the alcohol and the drugs aside, you still have got the what I think is a spiritual malady. You've got behaviors and things that you ought to change. And I wanted to change. Like I wanted it all. I didn't just want to stop drinking. I wanted to change my thinking, some of my behaviors.
What thinking, what behaviors did you want to change?
I think self-centered thinking, because I was able to recognize how this selfish, self-centered thinking, where it's just centered around me. Wake up in the day. What does Tabitha need? What does Tabitha want? Like, what do I not have? Like that mindset of of lacking, of scarcity, like what I don't have, comparison to other people. Like I realized that was a big cause of this like inner unrest and agitation inside that I used alcohol and drugs to medicate. So that was what I needed to focus on, and I wanted to as well. I was told, like, to wake up and ask how, God, how I could be of service to other people. And sometimes I do that, throughout the day or even multiple times a day. It just helps me kind of redirect my thinking when it goes back to, selfish, self-centered kind of thoughts. And I think we all have them, but it's just in my case, like, I don't, because I believe I have the chronic condition of alcoholism, like I don't have the luxury to sit with them and let them fester. Like I have to squash it or find a way. It's sort of like any chronic condition where you have a sort of a flare up of some sort of pain or discomfort, and there's a treatment for that. This is my treatment for that.
Granting forgiveness, I think, is understandable and wonderful. It's the nice thing to do. It's the right thing to do, and I think it unburdens you of carrying the weight. I heard this great story about two monks that were. I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was an old lady that needed to be carried across a road or a river or something like this, and the one monk lifted the woman up and carried her across, and they walked a long way, and the other monk said, this is terrible, that she needed to helped. And the other monk said, how come, I carried her and I left it there. You're still carrying the resentment today. It's time to forgive. And so that therefore it was, the burden was carrying the problem for a long period of time. I've told the story terribly. I apologize for that. But
No.
I think there is a benefit in getting rid of resentment and hatred and anger by forgiving. But the reverse of that, which is asking for forgiveness. And I think what you described is going and what did you call it when you go and tell someone about
making amends? Yeah, and that is,
it must be difficult making amends and asking for forgiveness.
I found that to be, I was terrified of making amends, because in many cases it required me to out myself for things that I think I did that people may not have known about. I was so terrified of making amends. And I started to listen to especially other women in recovery talk about how they did that and what happened. And ultimately it's, I think if I would have gone on this mission to make amends the way I thought I should have on my own, I don't think things would have gone so well, because I think I still had my motives. If I make amends to, this friend, they'll be my friend again. I'll get the friendship back. And the way I thought about going about these amends was very different than the direction I had given to me by, in my case, a sponsor. Because they showed me the intention is it's to bring people peace. There are some cases where, you exposing something, a truth, might actually cause someone more harm. So only to go about them in a way that was going to bring somebody peace and not to cause any further harm in the way you go about making amends. It's kind of tricky, but it's possible to cause more harm when you try to do it.
If you've hurt someone so badly that they don't even want to talk to you or see you again, how do you make amends?
It's tough. Like, the most important thing I was told was to be willing. To be willing was the most important part. To be willing to make that amends, and if it requires reaching out to someone, and let's say that person completely shuts you down, ignores you, or maybe meets you and then just uses it as an opportunity to yell at you, like you're there to take responsibility. And sometimes ask them, because sometimes we think someone's holding on to something and we're holding on to it. And then you sit down and have an honest conversation and they're like, well, no, that's no problem. There was this other thing that you did. Or it's, don't you remember you borrowed $100 from me and you haven't given it back? And it's like that, they let what you can do that's gonna, make things right for them. So sometimes it's a matter of asking. With my siblings, it was, just I wanted to be as thorough as possible. So it was allowing them to have the opportunity to let me know what I could do. In some cases, people closest to me, a lot of them said, if you continue on the path you're on, that is all that I need. Like, I need to see, especially as a parent, I need to see you. Like, it's a living amends. So to continue living your life this way is all the amends I need. And there's nothing else, you have to say or make right. And that's obviously really lovely. And that is like part of amends you make, I think, to your fellow humans on this planet, is to just like continue to live better, live a spiritual life.
When you make amends, do you ask for forgiveness, or you just hope that someone's going to grant you forgiveness?
No. And that's the thing. I'm not there to receive anything. I'm just there to take responsibility and, make things right, or give them the peace they need. If that happens, I mean, I don't think the word forgiveness is used a lot, which is interesting. I didn't ever sit down with someone and ask them for forgiveness. I see that a lot in like other story in books and movies. will you forgive me? Please forgive me. But I don't think I ever used those words directly. And even with my father, I never had a conversation with him like where I said, I've forgiven you. We just had an honest conversation one day where I told him about a night that I was really trying to not do to not get caught in that cycle, addiction cycle. But I went out with my friends and I thought, just have this many drinks, just do a little bit, go home, go to bed, and I tried my best. Like I went home, I took a shower, I put on my like fluffy pink pajamas and used my lotions and got into bed and just sat there and said, stay here. Like it's stay here, stay here, stay here. Go to bed, wake up tomorrow on Saturday and have a full day like all these other people where they walk their dogs and they go for lunch. And it was minutes before I was out of bed and, down the elevator and to the after party. And I remember telling him this and I hadn't told anyone. I remember like I felt so shameful about it, thinking like the next day thinking, how am I here again? And all he said was, sweetheart, I understand. And I just had in that moment, like I felt the lift because I realized like he truly did understand. And there's something in the simple sentence told me like he'd been there. And I thought about, I guess as a kid and, sitting there waiting and where he must have been when he left, didn't pick me up and how terrible he must have felt. And, I imagine he tried to, like, if he understood, like he tried too, the same way I'd tried. And that's when I felt forgiveness. And I didn't say in that moment, like, I forgive you or anything, or even since, but it happened. And I think like, because it happened and because I let go too, it's allowed us to have a relationship today, a consistent relationship where there's still boundaries. Like, my father's abstinent, as well. He has a different program than I do, let's just say. But and abstinence doesn't always equate to like emotional well-being. So it's still can be a tough relationship. But I know that I go into it right sized. I don't have this weight of resentment that I bring into every interaction. In fact, like I show up now and I know I have my boundaries and he's very aware of what they are and I've communicated them. And I also show up and I try to think about how I can be helpful,
Your story is in this book?
Yeah, that story with my father is in this book.
And you've got...
I decided... Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say I decided to tell it because it was a tough one.
Yeah.
That relationship was, is tough and it involves addiction and affecting both of us. And that's why I chose to tell it, because it didn't like tie up nicely with a bow or anything. But I was still able to find it. And I think I imagine there's other daughters and sons and, persons out there that have been in this too, where like, that I spoke to someone last night, like, they joked about like you inherited addiction too. We don't really mean that, but yeah, like, having a parent and them falling into it and seeing it and swearing that wouldn't be you. And then it ends up being you and, finding forgiveness in order to be free and stay well, stay sober, stay on track.
So your story and several others are part of this book. What's the book called?
It's called When We Forgive.
When We Forgive. And how can one get this?
Well, mostly I think we have Canadian listeners, so it's available at all Indigo stores across Canada. Also some independent bookstores in Toronto, like Caversham Booksellers, and anywhere books are sold online.
We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in 2 minutes with Tabitha Rose and maybe talk about some of the other authors in this book. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Tabitha Rose is our guest tonight, and she's been very open and vulnerable, telling us about her addiction and about her father's addiction and about um, getting through it all and asking, not asking for forgiveness, I guess, telling people about what happened and making amends and providing forgiveness, but not asking for forgiveness, and that's kind of interesting. So this whole book is about different people's forgiveness stories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling. I know a few of the other authors, and I don't know what they had to forgive. Bad things happened to them, but what did they have to forgive? And I'm thinking, one story in particular about a lady whose husband died young. What did she have to forgive?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because, her husband passed away. And in grief, she started to lean on alcohol to cope. And she felt a lot of shame around that in terms of how she was able to show up for her daughters or not, she felt. And she felt like it was something that had come between them in their relationship. And she felt like she needed that forgiveness from her daughters. She felt awful, and she wanted to know that she was living better, she was doing better, she wasn't using alcohol to cope, and she recognized the harm that may have caused to them. And so she was on the other side of it, where she felt she had caused harm, and wanted to be forgiven for that from her daughters. And that's like a few other stories in the book where they talk about having caused harm and being in need of forgiveness.
Tell us about some of the other authors and what their story is, if you could.
Yeah, incredible stories. I think a lot of them, as you can tell, touch on family dynamics, family relationships. We have kind of a nice story. Is Dr. Vera Tarman tells her story in the book of her mother being an alcoholic, and the harm that was caused to her as a result of that when she was young, and her mom also died very young. So the person being gone, mother being gone, and needing to forgive her sometimes can be difficult. Fun story is that Dr. Vera Tarman was my doctor when I was in treatment. So now we have this full circle of sort of like she helped me get well, and now I approached her about the book when we've had a group already formed of authors. I thought of her, and she said yes. And she went off to write her story, and she sent it to me, and I read it, and I was extremely moved by her story. And it wasn't until I think her book was just ready to launch, I saw her, and she said, "I want to thank you because I held on to this story for so long, like just inside, not sharing it. And I felt like, it's not doing me any good by holding on to it. I think it can help a few people maybe. And so I thank you for giving me the opportunity to let it go kind of even more, and allow it to maybe help others and everybody in the book. That's the book, everyone shared their story in service of others. Like the proceeds from the book go to the nonprofit. All these voices got together to share their stories in hopes that like they could help somebody. We wanted to aim for when forgiveness felt completely out of reach, whether it was needing to forgive someone or be forgiven, or self-forgiveness, which often comes into play in both cases. So they all did. Like everyone had, told tough stories.
The stories that you have mentioned so far about addiction, but you also say they're about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a trauma story and how forgiveness played in that story, if you could.
Yeah. Adam Kunder was a firefighter. And he's a firefighter in Windsor. And what I know about the city of Windsor is I think the number of emergency response calls are extremely high. So I mean, as a kid, his dream was to be a firefighter. Like the fire engine would roll by and he'd look up at it like, one day I want that to be me. So here he is, a young man as a firefighter. That the dream of all dreams he's had, begins to cause him harm, in the form of PTSD. And, and this brotherhood of firefighters that were supposed to he understood like as a family to protect each other, weren't protecting him, and he needed help. And that help wasn't there. And he, suffered a great deal because of it. And so it's the forgiveness of, that community or family, I guess, of firefighters and the organization, for sort of tossing him aside when he needed help the most.
Mental health, you say, is another topic?
Yeah. And PTSD in that case. So he talks about the journey of going through that, and then the recovery thereafter, and ultimately as part of that recovery and treatment, needing to free himself for any the resentment he carried around those persons involved, and for the dream not quite turning out how he imagined it would.
Talk to me, if you could, about the importance of people. You mentioned that your sister and your sister at the end of your bed saying that you were an addict was critically important. But at the same time, you talked about your sponsor and how your sponsor really helped you in thinking through how to make amends. Are people important in getting through problems in life, in challenges, in addiction, in mental health, in trauma?
I think so. In that process of going to detox and then to treatment, I saw this circle of care, I call it, form around me. I had my sister, I had my sponsor. I now had an addictions counselor. I had these people around me that especially when it's, I'm new in recovery, a few months or so, like I still felt wobbly. I didn't feel at all, this is the miracle of it, the desire to drink or use whatsoever, but just wobbly in my decision making. I didn't fully trust myself yet. So I had people to sort of, to run decisions through. Like, am I thinking the right way on this? Like, it could be how I handle, interaction with someone. It could be a work thing. It could be but am I thinking the right way? Like, is this a safe decision? And I went to them with everything and anything. I still do. I still have that circle of care. I'm, my 8th year of sobriety, and I still have that, I still have that circle around me that sometimes I just make sure my thinking's right on this one. I make sure I'm seeing this right. Maybe I need that little perspective shift, right? Because I've shifted into a lot of thinking of myself. And they help me do that. So yeah, I think people are important, and it's for everybody to, come up with find their own circle of care, whatever that looks like.
Do you think this circle of care is important or critical? Some people think that, you've got to do it on your own. Other people think, no, you can't do it if you don't have, a meeting that you go to, a sponsor that you're going to talk to, a buddy that is an accountability buddy, a sister that's going to call you out, etc. What's your sense? Is it an individual act, or is the circle of care, this community that supports you, this family that's critical?
I think everyone finds their own path, and I'm not a representative or, especially like forcing the 12-step programs on anybody. I've seen other people find long-term recovery, sobriety, many different ways. But I really do think that it's important to have like caring people around you, people you can trust and care about you around you. Ultimately, I'm taking the steps, but on my own. I'm going through life on my own. But sometimes I just need the accountability is important. Like I became a person that couldn't be relied on, right? And having people sometimes remind me, like, you've made this commitment. Maybe it's a friend that, I've agreed to meet with or we have plans on Sunday and them just sort of reinforcing, yeah, but you said you're going to be there. Yes, I did. And holding me accountable. My sister is going to hold me accountable. She's a very tell it like it is, type of girl. So, there's no guessing with her when it comes to how she feels. And she's helped me. I experienced my first year of sobriety was really tough. At first, it was a roller coaster of emotions. I could be on top of the world feeling. I remember one day I was taking the subway, walking down to the tracks, and I felt like on top of the world. I was listening to this inspirational song, and then all of a sudden I thought, well, maybe what if I jumped on the tracks? Like it just switched. It was so fast. And that's what I went through for the first year or so. It was tough. It was a lot of ups and downs, high highs and low lows. And thankful to Dr. Vera Tarman, who in treatment talked to me about post-acute withdrawal. It's something that could go on for 6 months to a year or more, depending on your length of use and what you used, etc. And so having that knowledge of post-acute withdrawal was really key because I understood what was happening. I understood that it wasn't just me. Like this is what happens after you stop using substances. And to reach out first, to help when I can. But it was still tough. I had low lows, just looked like almost incapable of getting out of bed and just functioning. So, I remember my sister one day sort of said, we're going to go get our nails done. And that felt like an impossible mountain to climb, like just getting out there and doing some self-care. And she insisted and she took me and I felt better. But I started being honest. I mean, it's a journey, but I started learning about what honesty is, real honesty, right? Not telling people a version of the truth that you think they can handle. You tell them you're incredibly sad and you can barely get out of bed. Well, they can't handle that. But it meant me being really honest about everything in my life. When I'm not great or, I need more time to work on something. And that's been a process too, but you keep going. And I feel like it's like a muscle. You keep working, right? It gets stronger as you go.
What a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. We're going to take a final break, and come back with some final comments in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We've had a really frank and open and honest and vulnerable conversation with Tabitha Rose about her and her addiction and forgiveness, a book that she's written with several different co-authors, some events she's having. Tabitha, I got to ask you a final question, if I could. Your whole business is about, it's called Life to Paper. It's about helping people write their stories. And it sounds like a lot of these stories are stories of problems that people are, and hopefully solutions to those problems that people are writing. Is writing your life story, particularly if there's some problems that you got through, therapeutic? Is it helpful? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe it is. It's funny because if you asked me, 10 years ago, if you think the process is worth much, I thought it was just about holding a book in your hands. But I started to work with more and more people. I started to get people telling me, as we're spending time together and they're telling me their stories and we're putting life to paper, this has been really helpful. And I said, what is this, right? This is a means too. And I even had someone, a doctor actually say, like, this has been one of the most meaningful things I've ever done. And even if you never hand me a book, it's worth it. It's all worth it. What is he talking about? He said, I don't know. There's something here. And then I started getting more people say that to me. And I started to see, like, I mean, getting to know people and starting to see the change in them, like the healing in them, as a result of, I guess, the life to paper process. And then I started to believe it. And someone gave me the opportunity, asked me if I'd go into, this is years ago, at like a treatment center. Will you do a writing workshop? Okay, sure. And I saw it was a moving experience. And then I started to think about, like, you know, in my life, what matters to me, what's close to my heart. Obviously, mental health and addiction. So what if I, like, did this more frequently? I went into treatment centers more frequently and ran these workshops. So in 2020, I started the foundation and started to do that. And I've seen incredible things happen. Like, there's a woman who came into the workshop. There were many, many chairs for everyone to sit. She decided to sit on the floor, eyes down, didn't make eye contact with anyone, didn't say anything. We went about the workshop, the writing portion. Then it came time for the sharing portion. And she, like, her eyes lifted and she stood up and she said, you know, I'm a survivor of human sex trafficking. And I've realized that, you know, I'm still here. I'm here to help other women. So you just saw, like, the light come on inside of her, you know, and after she had, you know, gone through the process and started to, you know, put her story to paper, it was like, wow. So I started to see, like, the change in people. I have people in workshops, in treatment centers, like patients, clients in treatment centers say, when I'm done here, can I volunteer and do this too? Like, and I mean, this isn't a mental health thing, but we have an author and who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's and was writing his life story. And he kept he was doing the writing, and he kept sending it to me, and, you know, and then telling me, wait, hold the presses. And he kept writing. And I thought, I didn't know at the time he had Alzheimer's. He did not disclose this. It was not in his story. Then I met his wife, who told me, just so you know, he probably failed to tell you this, but he has Alzheimer's. I said, I would have never known. And at that point I said, look, if he wants to keep writing, you know, and we had this realization together, actually, that he felt why he couldn't stop writing or didn't want to stop writing, because it was stalling the progression of the disease. And I thought, isn't this amazing? Like, putting his life to paper is literally stalling the progression of Alzheimer's. I mean, wow. And so I let him write. We did finish the book, and we published the book, changed the angle. He wanted to write about the fact that he felt like this was the defense against his dementia and Alzheimer's. And I got an email from him a couple weeks ago, to me and, you know, other people in his life, friends and family, that he's been, you know, back to the neurologist who said he no longer has Alzheimer's. And I'm not a doctor, and this is obviously, like, just, you know, me repeating his experience, but either he was misdiagnosed or it's gone. And he believes that he took up arms against this, and one of them is, like, writing his life story, because he's continued to write even since his books come out.
Tabitha, if people want to write their life story with you, how do they contact you?
Lifetopaper.com. You can reach me there, submit your question. I'll be in touch. We help people put their life to paper and publish their books, and ultimately in service of others to write a better future.
And remind us the name of the forgiveness book.
It's called When We Forgive.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos go up on my website, briancrombie.com, on social media, my YouTube channel, on podcast servers as soon as the radio show goes to air. Forgiveness. I think it's really important to provide. Nice to get, but really important to provide because it does lift the burden off of you. Thanks.